Hello and welcome. My name is Atticus Godfrey Hamilton, and this is part 3 out of 5 of the 60 and 60 by 60 project, during which I intend to read 60 specifically chosen books over the next 60 months, at the end of which I will turn 60 years old, Lord willing. I would like to update you on the project so far. I finished reading Robin Hood. I finished reading All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare, and now there are only 58 books remaining. I have begun this monster, it's really a trilogy packed into this one volume, and I'm enjoying it very much. This is Kristen Lavern's daughter, and at this point in the narrative where I'm at in the book, she is about 15 years old, and she's torn between the fellow that she's supposed to marry and the fellow who really wants to marry her more out of for a passionate motivation than just because of wealth and prestige. Very good book. Now for part 3, 12 books, a dozen. And the first one is going to take us from the 1880s into the 1930s. So this is a transition between the 19th and 20th century. This was written by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's called Love in the Time of Cholera. It's well known. I have never read it. And that's the case for all 12 of the books I'm going to present today. I have read 100 Years of Solitude by the same author. And there is some supernatural surrealism, I guess, to the narrative. And that is something that consistently turns me off as a reader. Other examples are Metamorphosis by Kafka, where the main character is essentially a gigantic bug, and the rest of the family can't figure out how he became a big bug. There's the Tin Drum, in which the main character is, I guess he's just like, he never grows up throughout the whole entire novel, and he's twisted. There's also Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie, in which all of these children are, I guess, born at the same time, and they have like an ESP connection or something. I can't remember too well, but it turned me off as I was reading it. And so I don't have high hopes ultimately for Love in the Time of Cholera, but it's a book that I feel I ought to read, and so I shall. Next, Henry James, another challenging one. As I've indicated in previous videos, I find Henry James very difficult. And the later that he got into his writing career, the more enamored he became with what he could do with the English language and what he could do with a sentence by very artistically manipulating the words in the English language. And so this is The Golden Bowl, which is very nearly the last book, I believe, that he wrote. And so therefore it falls solidly into that classification of his work that should be very difficult. Right now I'm reading Wings of the Dove, and I saw something online recently about you need to read it for the artistry of the language and not for the story. And so I will try to apply that advice to that one and to The Golden Bowl as well. Big Rock Candy Mountain is a book that I might not know about had I not joined one of those Facebook groups where people enthusiastically discuss classics all day, every day. Big Rock Candy Mountain is set in 1905 in North America, which I say North America, it's the United States and also Canada. There's some traveling back and forth, evidently. So the lady in the Facebook group that I belong to that recommended this to me was ebullient in her praise, and so that I got the impression it was her favorite book ever, and that she wouldn't really be happy unless she got at least 2 or 3 million people to read the book. And so she looped me in, and hopefully it lives up to her hype. This is also not the only one by Wallace Stegner. In this project later, there will be another one that won the Pulitzer Prize, but not in today's dozen books. Honey in the Horn. I believe this is set in Oregon. This is not up to my standards for a paperback. And by that I mean it's smallish and not very large print. But it's hard to get a good copy. I think it may be out of print now, or if it is in print, it's like by one of those tiny independent public publishers. So it did win the Pulitzer Prize. Not that that means everything, because despite winning the Pulitzer Prize, it's a hard book to find. I belong to a physical classics book club, and they chose this one, and I was excited because it had been on my list for a while, and then they changed their mind because it was so difficult to locate copies of it for the group to read. This is a very tiny John Steinbeck. I will call it a novel, but really, what's the cutoff between a novella and a novel? Would you say somewhere around 190 pages would be the cutoff, or 170 pages? Well, this is 95 pages. So we're going to call this a novella called The Red Pony. And I have not read it, but I will. This is set in California, as are most of the books written by Steinbeck. I've read a lot of Steinbeck novels. I think maybe, possibly, for classic authors, he may be the one, other than Shakespeare, that I've read the most works by. Another book I wouldn't know too much about had it not been for joining this Facebook classics group that I belong to, is by John Williams, and the name of the book is Stoner. Stoner is the main character. I think he's a professor in Missouri. And this is not a large book either, 270 something pages. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's another one where people that love it seem to love it more than anything else they've ever read. Almost becomes like sports fandom at this point. It's like, my team is the best. Of course, it's your team. How could there be any competition? Dr. Zhivago, you've heard of this. This is set in Russia. There's also a well-known movie based on this book. Dr. Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. This next one, Young Lonergan, set in 1916 in Chicago. Now, this is part of a trilogy. The Studs trilogy won the Pulitzer Prize at some point. Actually, not the Pulitzer Prize. It's on the Modern Library's list of the 100 greatest novels, and it's listed as a trilogy. But this is just part one. Young Lonergan, set in Chicago. This one, Winnie the Pooh. Now, this is the 100-year anniversary right now of Winnie the Pooh, which was written in 1926. It is set in, are you ready for this? The 100-Acre Woods. Now, if you go looking for the 100-Acre Woods, I think you might not find it. And if you do find it, it may be an imposter of the 100-Acre Woods, which is a fictional location. Now, even though this was written 100 years ago, I won't read it until 2028 for this project, presumably, and so it will be the 102-year anniversary when I get to it. Set in 1920 in Europe is The Garden of Eden, published posthumously. That means after he died. It's Ernest Hemingway, not a very large book. And this is helpful for a project like this because I don't want to get too far behind. And there are a few books in this dozen that I'm presenting today that are on the shortish side. This one is 240 something pages. Set in France and Spain. Next, we have Dance to the Music of Time. This is a series of books set about 1920 in London, written by Anthony Powell. I believe this says first on the spine. I think there might be 3 books in here, but there are 12 altogether. But we'll begin this series with this one, A Dance to the Music of Time. And lastly, for this dozen of part 3, 60 and 60 by 60. Now in November, a novel by Josephine W. Johnson. Now, she won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction when she was 24 years old. That was about 1930. And no one has ever won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction at a younger age. She continues to hold the record. Now in November, this is set in Colorado, maybe? No, it's set in the Dust Bowl. That's right. This is a Dust Bowl story set in the 1930s. Okay, thank you. I'll see you next time for part 4, which is this one. This stack right here, but you can't see it unless you watch the next video.